They say The Lion King is just Hamlet with lions, that Lion King 2 is Romeo and Juliet with lions. I can only hope that one day they make Lion King 3 to complete the trilogy. I always wanted to see Macbeth with lions. The Lion King was one of the great Disney animated films back when the company still valued artistry over the modern audience. It's a tale of ambition, betrayal, and the occasional fart joke, a true masterpiece for the age. But one claim has persisted over the decades. One used to both praise The Lion King as a classic and condemn it as a ripoff. The claim that The Lion King was Disney's take on Hamlet. Oddly enough, the story was first pitched as Bambi in Africa. However, during development, the filmmakers took heavy inspiration from the stories of Joseph and Moses, along with, of course, Hamlet. And to no one's surprise, the fans have picked up on the parallels. But how strong are those parallels? I mean, on a narrative level. Does The Lion King carry the same heart and soul as a legendary Shakespearean play? Is The Lion King truly just Hamlet with lions? The Lion King follows the journey of Prince Simba, who loves the idea of being king, but for all the wrong reasons. He wants the power of sovereignty, but has no concept of responsibility. So he's well on his way to being a privileged Twitterati complete with a powerful conservative dad who hates open borders. Can't have those pesky hyenas coming in and ruining our precious pride lands after all. Simba famously has a whole song about his immature view of being king, which makes sense coming from a child, but it really sets up Simba as less of a King Mufasa and closer to a King John II. The whole sequence not only gives us some valuable insight into Simba's character, but allows him to evade his royal supervisor. And soon after, Simba travels to the elephant graveyard with his best friend Nala, a place Mufasa told Simba never to explore because it lies outside their domain. Simba and Nala quickly run into the hyena trio, Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed, who nearly kill the young prince and his girlfriend before Mufasa arrives in time to save the day. Quite an important scene because it's the very first time Simba experiences serious consequences, and his arrogance nearly cost Nala her life. The events of the elephant graveyard were a harsh reality check and a perfect setup for what happens later. Enter Scar, Mufasa's evil younger brother who covets the crown, and so this story's evil uncle has taken the stage. Unfortunately, as Mufasa's younger brother and with Simba acting as the king's heir, Scar's chances of becoming king are nearly zero. Nearly. His only path to the crown is if Mufasa and Simba both happen to vanish from the picture. So Scar pulls some Game of Thrones maneuvers, rallies the hyenas, and prepares to put his grand scheme into play. Scar was the one who convinced Simba that the elephant graveyard was a cool place to be because only the coolest lions go there. And Simba, ever eager to prove how cool he is, ventured off with his friend Nala. This was Scar's first attempt at Simba's life. The hyenas were lying in wait for their opportunity to strike. That plan failed. This time, Scar decided to take a more active role in his designs for the crown and devised a far more devious plan. Scar lures Simba into a gorge and tells him to wait there until his father arrives with a marvelous surprise. Nearby, Scar's hyena crew is lying in wait to spark a wildebeest stampede. Simba is set to be trampled until Mufasa rushes in to save him again. Mufasa does save Simba, but has trouble escaping the stampede. It looks bad until Mufasa manages to scale the gorge, giving Simba and us a glimmer of hope. Unfortunately, Scar was ready. Suddenly, the tables had turned, and for the first time, the mighty Mufasa was vulnerable, and his fate was completely in the hands of his jealous younger brother, who, of course, betrays Mufasa and sends him falling to his doom. Scar manipulates Simba into believing he was responsible for his own father's demise. Not only did he feel the full guilt for Mufasa's death, but Simba's old scars are reopened as the trauma of the elephant graveyard reared its ugly head. From Simba's perspective, his foolishness once again put his loved ones in danger, but this time no one stepped in to save the day. And now his father was dead. No one will ever step in to save the day again. Simba is chased out of the Pride Lands by Scar's hyenas, allowing the scheming uncle to begin his reign of terror. Fortunately, Simba is saved by Timon and Pumbaa, who teach him to forget his worries, a welcome hideaway from his relentless guilt. Simba lives the carefree hippie life for years until Nala comes back to remind him of the life and responsibilities he left behind. Turns out Scar reversed Mufasa's closed border policy for an open border policy that allowed the hyenas in, and as a result, the Pride Lands are on the brink of ruin. With a quick scolding from Ghost Mufasa, Simba returns, defeats Scar, reinstates Mufasa's closed border policy, and leads the Pride Lands into a new golden age. A very nice story of self-discovery, maturity, and responsibility, with an interesting journey and a happy ending. Simba begins the story as a selfish royal, dreaming about abusing his power for selfish gain, and then changes into a wizened adult who leads the Pride Lands from a state of ruin to a state of paradise once again. And that's the story of the Lion King. So next comes the big question. How close is the story of the Lion King to the story of Hamlet? Well, first, there's the obvious. The Lion King follows Prince Simba on his journey of self-discovery, redemption, and the restoration of his kingdom, while Hamlet follows Prince Hamlet on his journey of revenge, the death of his family, and the loss of his kingdom. Hamlet's evil uncle Claudius conspired to murder King Hamlet, Prince Hamlet's father, while Simba's evil uncle Scar conspired to murder King Mufasa. King Hamlet returns from the grave to tell his son all about his murder, and Prince Hamlet swears revenge against his scheming uncle, a vendetta that eventually leads to his tragic demise. King Mufasa, however, returns from his grave to remind his son of his responsibility, and Prince Simba swears to uphold his father's teachings, a promise that eventually leads to his growth as a character and a victorious end. But one major lesson the Lion King shares with Hamlet is the danger of ruthless ambition. Hamlet has Claudius, who orchestrates the death of his brother King Hamlet, not just to ascend the throne, but attain his brother's wife. And while his villainous plan does succeed, the king's death is also the inciting incident that eventually leads to Claudius's death by the hands of Hamlet. And I point this out specifically because it's doubly shown in The Lion King. Claudius lusts for the crown, while Hamlet lusts for revenge. However, in The Lion King, Scar and Simba share the same ambition. I mean, Simba sings an entire song about becoming king and using his authority to run around all day, and the only reason Scar wants to be king is to live in luxury. Both wanted the benefits of being king, but neglected its responsibility. So, in The Lion King's case, Scar acts as Simba's dark mirror, a reflection of what could have been had Simba maintained his childish view of being king. And later, we can see how much Simba has changed since his exile, Scar having stayed the same while Simba learned to accept his kingly responsibility after spending years running away from his guilt and fear. And like Hamlet, who allowed revenge to ruin his relationship with his mother, his girlfriend Ophelia, and his entire future, Simba allowed his guilt to deny the future he was destined to have. It made him stay with Timon and Pumbaa, the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of The Lion King, who really act closer to Lotus Eaters, letting Simba forget about his past and keeping him lazy and docile while his kingdom wastes away. And I point this out because both protagonists allow their emotions to rule their lives, just in different ways. Hamlet's revenge drove him to madness, while Simba's guilt drove him to laziness. In both instances, these emotions kept our protagonists away from the righteous path. And those of you who watched my Villain's Journey video might know where the real difference lies: the temptation test. The real difference between a hero and a villain is how they react to this test. A hero succeeds and a villain fails. And in the case of both princes, their temptation tests, as temptation tests often do, revolved around women. Ophelia is Hamlet's main love interest and represents his last chance to abandon his revenge. Specifically, the moment Ophelia tries to return tokens of affection Hamlet had once given her out of love. Here, Ophelia represents the last bastion of salvation, and these tokens of affection are all that remains of happier times. A reminder of who Hamlet used to be: a young prince smitten by young love. Hamlet might have laid eyes on these old tokens and remembered what he was pushing away and what he was losing. Maybe he could have realized that revenge was less important than his love for Ophelia and the future they could have had. Unfortunately, Hamlet fails his temptation test. He denies Ophelia, and in so doing, definitively rejects the happy prince he used to be and sacrifices his future for revenge. And Ophelia would drown herself soon after. Nala, however, is Simba's main love interest and represents his last chance to finally shed his childish ways, return home, and accept responsibility as king, or remain paralyzed by guilt, wasting his life away doing nothing and eating the bugs. Simba's test arrives when Nala wanders far from the Pride Lands in search of food, and she, by chance, discovers a long-lost prince. They reconnect and old feelings are reignited. Just like Ophelia with Hamlet, Nala reminds Simba of what he's leaving behind. And just like Hamlet, Simba faces a choice, a temptation test. Does he choose the easy path and remain with Timon and Pumbaa in childish exile, or does he choose the painful path of redemption, returning home to face his demons and expose the truth about Mufasa's death? It takes some time, some guidance from Rafiki, and a lecture from Mufasa's ghost, but when Simba is ready to make his choice, he chooses the painful path of redemption. A major positive shift in character if you think about it. about it. Remember, Simba's song "I Just Can't Wait to Be King" showed us he didn't actually want to be king. He really just wanted the freedom to play around all day without anyone around to tell him no. To quote, "No one's saying do this. No one's saying be there. No one's saying stop that. No one's saying see here. Free to run around all day. Free to do it all my way." So, his life with Timon and Pumbaa essentially gave him everything he ever wanted. Yet, in the end, Simba denied the life he wanted for the responsibilities of being king. And to highlight the point, Scar wanted the crown for the same reasons young Simba did. Yet even as the Pride Lands were stripped bare and his kingdom started to crumble, Scar never chose the righteous path. He remained a selfish tyrant to the end. In short, he failed his temptation test. Although it should be noted that Simba benefited from having a better father than Hamlet. Where King Hamlet's ghost told his son to avenge his murder, King Mufasa told his son to stop being a lazy hippie and retake his place in the circle of life. Remember, Simba allowed Scar to walk away into exile until the conniving cretin threw burning embers into Simba's eyes and the two had an epic showdown. Deadly revenge against Scar wasn't entirely necessary by Mufasa's command. The Lion King is often referred to as Hamlet but with lions. After everything we've discussed, one question remains. How close does The Lion King match the story of Hamlet? While there are some strong parallels, their lessons are not only different but opposite. Hamlet shows us the destructive nature of revenge. Hamlet, a young prince with a promising future and a loving girlfriend, tossed it all aside for his personal vendetta. The true tragedy was not the murder of King Hamlet by his brother, but Hamlet's destruction. He rejects Ophelia for revenge, which leads to Ophelia ending her own life, which leads to her brother Laertes declaring his own vendetta against Hamlet, and this leads to Hamlet's death by Laertes' blade. Meanwhile, Simba is also a young prince with a promising future and a loving girlfriend, and he also loves the power of being king, but not the responsibility. When Mufasa dies and Simba finds himself in exile, he sets down his own path of leisure and no worries. But when Nala finds him, Simba struggles with his desire to stay in exile rather than face his guilt. However, Simba does eventually accept Nala's plea to return home and retake his kingdom. Hamlet showed us how revenge can tear down the lives of everyone involved, including the one taking the revenge. The Lion King showed us the importance of growth and maturity. A child just wants to play, but as we saw with Scar's actions, playing all day means nothing gets done and the world falls to ruin. A child would also rather run away from his problems than take responsibility. However, as Rafiki teaches us, running from your demons does not cure the pain. What does it matter? It's in the past. Yeah, but it still hurts. Hamlet wanted to walk the path of revenge and denied Ophelia to remain on that path, while Simba wanted to walk the path of leisure, yet accepted Nala's request, left his chosen path behind, all so he could walk the path of righteousness. So, is The Lion King just Hamlet but with lions? Sort of. It isn't nearly a ripoff at all, since Hamlet is a story of revenge while Simba is a story of maturity. But there are quite a few parallels. Ultimately, I would say The Lion King is Hamlet if the prince triumphed over his flaws. Although it would have been interesting if The Lion King gave us a crazy Simba obsessed with revenge against Scar, and fairly tragic to see Nala end her own life when Simba chooses revenge over her. And also hilarious to see Timon and Pumbaa conspire with Scar to murder Simba. Maybe Timon, Pumbaa, and Simba would be sent off to negotiate an alliance with another animal group, and Simba leaves Timon and Pumbaa to be eaten. Possibilities abound. But I think in any case, the grand tale of Hamlet and the legendary Lion King both show us that to err is human, but a true king should learn from his mistakes.